Table for one? The hostess said it the way people say things they don't mean as a question. Flat. Already decided. Nadine set her bag down on the counter. The leather was worn at the strap, the kind of wear that comes from years of use, not neglect. She looked at the young woman behind the podium, blonde highlights, a headset looped around one ear, the practiced smile of someone who has learned to smile without meaning it. 2, Nadine said. We have a reservation. Under O.C. Marchetti. The hostess typed something, looked at the screen, typed again. I'm not seeing it. It was made 3 weeks ago. My daughter called. Ma'am, I'm not seeing anything under that name. Behind Nadine, the door to Chez Laurier opened, and a man in a camel coat walked through. The hostess looked up immediately, her smile different now, wider, warmer, the real one. Good evening, Mr. Thibault. Your usual table is ready. She came around the podium, menus in hand, and led him through the dining room without another word to Nadine. Nadine did not move. She stood at the podium and waited, her coat folded over one arm, her phone in her hand, the screen still showing the confirmation email her daughter had sent her. Table for 2, 7 p.m. Reservation confirmed. Chez Laurier, November 14th. It was November 14th. It was 7:03 p.m. She was not a woman who made scenes. She had learned a long time ago that dignity was more disruptive than any raised voice. So she stood and she waited. The hostess came back. She glanced at Nadine as if surprised she was still there. Like I said, ma'am, I'm not finding the reservation. I have the confirmation email right here. Sometimes those go through our system incorrectly. I can put you on the wait list, but I should tell you we're fully booked tonight. Nadine looked across the dining room. There were empty tables, 3 of them. She could see them from where she stood. There are empty tables, she said calmly. Those are reserved. For whom? The hostess blinked. I'm sorry? I asked who those tables are reserved for. A pause, the kind of pause that people fill with whatever they need to fill it with. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to step aside. There are other guests. My reservation is confirmed, Nadine said. She held up her phone so the screen was visible. This is your restaurant's email address. This is the confirmation number. I would like to speak with the manager. Her daughter had picked Chez Laurier because it had been their tradition. Every year, on the Friday closest to Nadine's birthday, they had dinner, just the 2 of them. It had started when Yolanda was 12, after Nadine's mother passed, and the birthday dinners that used to be large and loud and full of cousins and aunties suddenly became something smaller, something that needed to be rebuilt from scratch. Yolanda had made the reservation herself that first year, at the diner 3 blocks from their apartment in Scarborough, and she'd asked the waitress to bring a cupcake with a candle, and she'd sung Happy Birthday in a whisper because she was embarrassed, and Nadine had cried in the car afterward. Now Yolanda was 31. She lived in Westmount. She had a daughter of her own, Nadine's granddaughter Bea, who was 4 and obsessed with turtles, and who called Nadine Gram Gram in a voice that dissolved something in Nadine's chest every single time. Tonight it was just the 2 of them. Yolanda had arranged a sitter. She'd made the reservation weeks ago. Nadine had taken the train from Ottawa that morning. She was not going to stand at this podium and be told there was no reservation. The manager came out from somewhere near the back of the restaurant, buttoning his jacket as he walked. He was tall, with the particular kind of confidence that comes from never having been questioned in a room that looked like this one. He looked at Nadine, then at the hostess, then back at Nadine, reassessing. I'm Giles Fontaine, the general manager. How can I help? His voice was the voice of a man who expected this to be resolved in 30 seconds. My name is Nadine O.C. Marchetti. I have a reservation for 2 at 7 o'clock. Your hostess cannot find it in the system, but I have the confirmation email. She held out her phone. He looked at it. Not long. The way people look at things when they've already made up their minds. I see. He handed the phone back. Unfortunately, ma'am, if the reservation isn't in our system. It was made through your website. Here is the confirmation number. Here is the timestamp. Your restaurant sent this email. Technical issues do happen. I apologize for the inconvenience, but if I can't verify the reservation, there are empty tables in the dining room. He glanced over his shoulder, looked back at her. Those tables are held for our regular guests and members of our private dining program. Nadine looked at him. She had looked at a great many people in her career, witnesses who lied on the stand, lawyers who believed they were the smartest person in the room, politicians who had confused their position with their character. She said, "I would like to sit down, ma'am. I'm afraid that's not possible tonight." "I'm not asking you to do me a favor," she said. "I'm asking you to honor a reservation that your restaurant confirmed in writing, as I explained." "You've explained nothing. You've told me there's a technical issue." "A technical issue in your system is not my problem." Gilles Fontaine's jaw tightened. It was small, the change, but it was there. "I'm going to ask you to lower your voice," he said. Nadine had not raised her voice. She knew she had not raised it. She was speaking at the same measured tone she had been using since she walked through the door. But she also knew what this was. She had seen it before. She had experienced it before. She had spent 30 years in courtrooms and knew exactly what someone looked like when they were manufacturing a reason. "I would like your business card," she said. "Excuse me? Your business card, your full name and title, and I would like the name of your ownership group." Something shifted in his face. "A calculation. Renard Hospitality Group," he said. "And I've given you my name. Gilles Fontaine. Thank you." She took out her own card and set it on the podium. "And this is mine." He looked at it. She watched him look at it. The color in his face did something subtle and irreversible. Nadine Dorothée O.C. Marchetti had been born in 1963 in the Annex neighborhood of Toronto, the second daughter of a seamstress from Accra and a postal worker from St. Henry. She had grown up watching her mother alter wedding dresses in the spare bedroom on a machine that hummed so constantly it became the sound of her childhood. She had grown up watching her father come home with his back stiff, and his shoes worn thin and his voice still warm, because he had decided, somewhere along the way, that the world owed him nothing and that this was not a tragedy. She had gone to U of T on a scholarship, then to Osgoode, then to practice, then to the bench. She had been appointed to the Federal Court of Canada 14 years ago. She was, at this moment, one of 21 sitting federal justices in the country. The card she had placed on the podium read, "The Honorable Nadine D.O.C. Marchetti, Federal Court of Canada." It was not a card she used often. She did not like using it. She believed very sincerely that who she was outside of a courtroom should not determine how she was treated in a restaurant. But she had learned over the years that belief and reality were not always the same thing. Gilles Fontaine's hand was still on the card. The hostess had seen it too. She was very still now, in the way that people become still when they realize a situation has changed shape. "Your Honor," he said. The title sat awkwardly in his mouth, like something he hadn't expected to need. "The reservation," Nadine said. He looked at the hostess. She looked at her screen, typed something, looked up. "I have it," the hostess said, very quietly. "O.Z. Marchetti, party of 2, 7 o'clock. It's here. Wonderful," Nadine said. Gilles Fontaine straightened his jacket. "I apologize for the confusion. Of course. Please." He gestured toward the dining room. "Please allow me to show you to your table personally." "That won't be necessary," she said. "I'll wait for my daughter." He nodded, took a small step back, took another. "Is there anything I can offer you while you wait? A glass of wine, perhaps, or water would be fine." Of course, he retreated. He did it smoothly, professionally, but he retreated. Nadine stood at the podium and waited for Yolanda. The dining room was warm and low-lit and smelled of butter and rosemary. At the tables around her, people were eating and laughing and leaning toward each other in the way people do when they've been somewhere long enough to feel at ease. Yolanda came through the door at 7:14, slightly out of breath, her scarf still half undone from the cold. "Mom, I'm so sorry. The metro was—" She stopped, looked at Nadine's face. "What happened?" "Nothing," Nadine said. "You look beautiful." "Mom," a small misunderstanding at the door. "It's been handled." Yolanda looked at the hostess, who was looking at her screen with great focus. She looked at Nadine again. "What kind of misunderstanding?" "The kind that happens," Nadine said. "Come, let's sit." They were shown to a table by the window, a good table, wide with the city light pouring through. The hostess pulled Yolanda's chair out without being asked. She was very careful now, very correct. They sat. Menus were brought immediately. Water appeared before they could ask. Yolanda waited until the hostess had gone, then leaned forward. "Tell me what happened." Nadine set her menu down. She looked at her daughter, at the warmth in her face, the crease of worry she'd inherited from her father. The way she still, after all these years, leaned forward when she wanted to know something. the same way she had at age 7 and 12 and 20. They couldn't find the reservation, Nadine said. The manager told me there was no room. There were 3 empty tables in the dining room. Yolanda was quiet for a moment, and then I left my card on the podium. Mom. Yolanda's voice was very even. Did they? Was it because? I don't know for certain, Nadine said. I never know for certain. That's part of how it works. But yes. I think so, Yolanda sat back. She pressed her hands flat on the tablecloth. It was a gesture Nadine recognized. She had done it herself in courtrooms when she needed a moment to decide who she was going to be. Are you going to do something? Yolanda asked. I already did something. Nadine picked up her menu. I sat down. Dinner was rack of lamb and wild mushroom risotto and a bottle of Burgundy that Yolanda chose and Nadine approved of. They talked about Bia, who had apparently told her nursery school teacher that sea turtles lived longer than people because they worried less. They talked about Yolanda's new case. She was a civil litigation lawyer, had been for 6 years, and Nadine loved hearing her talk about her work in the same way she imagined her own mother had felt watching her argue. They talked about the house in the annex where Nadine's parents had lived and which still carried, somehow, the particular smell of that sewing machine. At no point did Giles Fontaine appear at their table. He was in the restaurant. Nadine saw him twice, at a distance, speaking to his staff. Once he glanced over, he looked away quickly. She had seen that look before, too. The look of a man who has remembered something he would prefer to forget. The evening was clear and cold when they came out. The November kind of cold that has no argument with you. It simply exists, and you adjust to it. They stood on the pavement outside Chez Laurier, and Yolanda tucked her arm through her mother's in the way she had since she was small, and they walked toward the corner to find a cab. You know what Bia asked me last week? Yolanda said. Tell me. She asked me if Gram was important, and I didn't know how to answer that for a 4-year-old. So I said, Gram is a judge. And she thought about it and then said, okay, but is she kind? Yolanda laughed, quiet, into the cold. I said yes. She said, then she's important. Nadine was quiet for a moment. She's smarter than both of us, she finally said. Don't tell her that. She already knows. They turned the corner. The street was bright with the kind of light that cities make when they're trying to be beautiful. Somewhere, a bus was pulling away from a stop. The air smelled like exhaust and cold, and just faintly, still, like the butter and rosemary from the restaurant behind them. Next year, Yolanda said. We choose somewhere new. Next year, Nadine agreed. 3 days later, Nadine was in her chambers in Ottawa when her clerk brought in the morning briefing. Below the case files and the pending motions was a printout of an article from a Toronto legal blog. Not a major publication, but widely read in the profession. Federal Court Justice denied reservation at Montreal restaurant. Renard Hospitality Group issues statement. The statement from Renard Hospitality Group was 11 sentences long. It contained the phrase does not reflect our values twice. It noted that Giles Fontaine was no longer employed by the company. Nadine read it once, set it down. She did not feel triumphant. She had not gone to the restaurant looking for a confrontation, had not put her card on the podium because she wanted this. She had done it because she was tired. Tired in a way that didn't begin that evening and wouldn't end with a press release. And because she had been there, standing in that dining room, with the evidence of her reservation on her phone, and the evidence of empty tables in front of her, and she had decided that she was not going to leave. That was all. Her clerk was hovering. Should I prepare a statement? He asked. No, she said. The media. No statement, she said. Thank you. She picked up the top case file and began to read. Outside her window, the Rideau Canal was gray and still under a low November sky. The city was going on around her, as it always did, indifferent to who had been seated and who had been turned away and what any of it meant. She thought about what Bia had said. Okay, but is she kind? She thought that was the only question that mattered, really. The only one that came for you at the end and asked for an honest answer. She thought she was still working on it. If you've ever walked into a room and felt like someone had already decided who you were before you opened your mouth, you know what Nadine felt that night. And if you've ever watched someone stay quiet and dignified when they had every right to be furious, you know what it costs. We'd love to know what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story stayed with you, please like it and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're new here, Subscribe to Velvet Honor. We believe that the quietest people in the room sometimes carry the most. We'll see you in the next one.